Hi, I'm Rose McDonough, and I'm a retired family and consumer science teacher. If you're tuning in for the very first time because you saw that I was doing something gluten-free, I kind of have a little bit of a background in doing this because I've done gluten-free on and off for most of my adult life. Today I'm going to use my starter from sourdough to actually make biscuits. So you can make your sourdough starter. You can make it from gluten-free flour. That's not a problem whatsoever. You just have to feed it once a week, just like you would do with the regular starter. This particular stuff that I'm using today is freshly fed. You can tell it's freshly fed because it's bubbling all over the place. After it's not been fed, maybe in a day or so, it starts to calm down. Some recipes will tell you keep it out for a day before you actually start to use it, or maybe an hour or two. This is my freshly fed 1 cup. I pulled it out, I'm ready to go. The flour I'm using today is a gluten-free perfect flour blend. Why is it perfect for me? It's perfect because I don't have to add xanthum gum to it. When you are using gluten-free, you usually need to add some xanthum gum. If you're starting out doing gluten-free for the first time in your life and you see the price tag on this, you're gonna lose your mind. But just keep in mind, you only use about 1/4 teaspoon every single time that you use it. So it goes a very, very long way. As I said, this one already has it in. So I'm going to go ahead with my 1 cup of starter, and I'm going to add in, I hope my bowl's not too small, my 1½ cups of flour. After my 1½ cups of flour, I'm adding in sugar, and it's a lot. It's 2 tablespoons. Sorry about that. Not that much salt, although everybody freaks out about salt, I know, but it's a teaspoon of salt. Salt is a stabilizer. You just need to use it. And I need a little bit of baking soda. The starter has yeast in it, but I still need a little bit more baking soda to go in it. Not much, 1/2 teaspoon. Fun fact, normally when you're using baking soda, it needs an acid to make it work. So you would use something like brown sugar, or you would use orange juice, that kind of thing to make it work. It will work now because there's already yeast in there. I'm gonna stir this up just a little bit, stir it down into here because I need to pour a few more things on top. I have some melted butter, 3 tablespoons of melted butter. And I also need 1/2 cup of milk. And they tell you that the milk should be closer to room temperature, which is what I tried to do. I got it out about 15 minutes ago and let it sit here. Once I have this, I'm just going to stir. I also have preheated my oven to 425 degrees, and I got out a glass baking dish. You can use glass, you can use a metal cookie sheet, baking sheet. It doesn't matter what you use to put them on. We're making drop biscuits. Today was my plan. I might have to add a little more flour to it because I might want to try to play with it and flatten them out. Some people decide that they can't make biscuits because I don't have a biscuit cutter. You don't need a biscuit cutter. Who doesn't have a glass in their house? As long as you have something that you can flatten it out. Oh, no, I don't have a rolling pin. Well, sure you do. Again, you might have a glass. You could use, the spray that you use sometimes. Everybody has one of those laying around. You can use those. Wash it off really well and use that as a rolling pin. Anything that is flat while it's in a round shape will help. Does that make any sense? You understood what I was saying. I certainly hope so. All right, I am able to get this mixed in a little bit better than I thought I was. And I'm using my tried and true folding technique. And of course, you see what I'm using to mix. My favorite tool in the whole world. It's a rubber scraper. Always love rubber scrapers. Good for every single thing that you're trying to do. This is just about mixed up. My oven is just about ready. Did you hear the beep, beep, beep? It means it's all ready to go. And I want to just make sure I have a little less white going on in there. And now I'm going to switch over here, bring this over, and I'm going to use my baking pan and 2 spoons. I can already see it bubbling up a little bit in here. That's that baking soda taking care. Baking soda needs a couple things for it to work. It needs moisture and it needs heat. There are some recipes, like when you're making pancakes, they'll tell you to go ahead and wait a few minutes because it needs time for the baking soda to dissolve inside of everything. Those aren't technical terms I'm using, by the way, just in case you were wondering. I do have a method. I scoop, I use the back of my spoon to drop on. I scoop, I use the back to drop on. These are biscuits, so they're not really going to move very much, so I can put them relatively close together when we're baking these. I'm going to try something. When this is in the oven, I'm going to take the rest of this and I'm going to try something else with it, so I have two things to show you. So this is going to go into the oven. We'll be back as soon as it is done. I'd like to make a little bit different with these biscuits, maybe for dinner. Maybe those other ones we're going to use as breakfast biscuits, and you can sprinkle some cinnamon sugar on top of them. But for these, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put some parsley in, and I'm also going to add a little bit of Parmesan cheese. Sorry about the measuring. I don't tend to do that kind of thing when I'm adding. A little bit more Parmesan than the parsley, and I'm going to fold it in the exact same way as I was folding in before when I mixed everything in. How will I know? Because I'll see that the green pieces are nicely distributed through the dough. I now have it well distributed in here, the Parmesan cheese and the parsley. So now I'm just going to go back into my scoop and drop method that I was using before, and I'm going to do another 6 biscuits. Might have to add a little more to that one. I'm just going to look at them, check them out. You want to try to be consistent in size anytime you're doing this, because you want to be consistent in baking. If you have a really small one and then another larger one, then one's going to burn or the other one is going to be doughy in the middle. The only time I want it partially cooked is, when I'm having a steak, and I want a little bit of pink still showing. So I'm looking at that one and saying, oh yeah, that's definitely too large. So now I'm just going to go through and add a little more to the other ones. So as I check the timer at 12 minutes at 425 degrees, maybe I'll need to add just another minute. Just as a life lesson that you should know, when a recipe tells you that you're going to have something in for 10 to 12 minutes, it doesn't mean you go, oh, I'll cut the difference and I'll make it 11. If they wanted 11 for sure, they would have told you that. When they say 10 to 12 minutes, they want you to check it at 10 and make the decision then. Are you going to need another minute or another 2 minutes? It's not just for you to make the decision. It's based on what your oven is, if there's been a little more airflow, maybe you had your oven door open a little bit longer than somebody else. Okay, that's it. I'm ready to go with my next batch. When that batch comes in, we'll throw these in and we'll see how those look as well. Kitchen timer has gone off and we're ready to take out the second batch, which is the herb biscuits that we did. They're nice and hot. So what I'm going to do with those now is, because who wants just plain Parmesan cheese? We want something else. So I'm adding a variety of some Colby Jack on here, a little bit of mozzarella. And we're just going to let this melt on top before I serve them. Doesn't that look attractive? Yes, I know I'm burning some of it on the bottom, but that's because this was at 425 degrees, so you know that it was definitely hot. I've taken these other ones that I've already done, and I pulled them out and I let them cool a little bit and I opened them up. Sourdough biscuits are going to be a little bit heavier on the inside. There's not a lot of butter in here to make them light and flaky, and I had not cold butter but melted butter. But they're very soft and it's very moist on the inside, and it's very tasty. So I hope whichever that you choose to do, you will enjoy them. I will also post the recipe for using the sourdough and not using gluten-free flour, but regular white flour, in case that's what you choose to do. I hope you come back again. Thanks.